Hi. Hello, folks. Coming on in, wherever you may be coming from. Hello. So as people are coming on in, just wanted to do the regular spiel that is said in the beginning, which is just if you're able to do your daily heart me, which is that orange heart, go ahead and do that. If you're not able to do that, feel free to double tap on the screen, and that just gives hearts. And what else is there? Oh, usually you can share if you want to, and if people feel comfortable giving gifts, also that's another option. Gianna said, "Hi Phoebe, haven't seen you in a few days." Oh, do I not show up on your timeline anymore, Gianna? Which is possible. I have, or are you talking about lives? I do lives every other day now, or every 3 days. Jennifer said, "Oh hey, I just came on to send you a TikTok of Lukola and the song August." Oh, interesting. I would love to see that, Jennifer. Thanks, Ava. Reese said, "Hi, girl. Hi." Greetings from South Dakota, said Gianna. Thank you, Anna. And Karen is from Central Oregon. Sup, also Jenny. And so I'm not sure if when Roni will be. Oh, that Roni's here. Invite. Did I hit it right? I don't know. Okay, I'm not sure why it's not letting me. So let me try it another way. Oh, I did invite. Okay. I'm freezing a little already. Flower with Stars says I'm freezing. Am I freezing for everybody else? Because that was quick. Hello, Kimorova girl. Becky said, "Love the edit someone posted today with the luckiest. My wedding song." Aw. Kimmy McPhee 16 says, "One of my favorite Lukola spaces." Oh, yay. I'm glad to hear that, Kimmy. Kat says, "Yay, live time." Yes. Hopefully, Roni is planning to join me today. And Roni, I'm comfortable how I'm doing this. Okay. Am I freezing for folks now? Has it gotten better since I turned on my Wi-Fi? Okay. Arisi said, "Lukola videos with August song make me sad. LOL." Maybe I'm watching the wrong ones. Well, August is kind of a sad song lyrically. That's why I was throwing out the idea of like having, like when we're talking about promoting Bridgerton by doing Pollen with August, the suggestion potentially was just to do August for seasons 1 and 2 and then switch to a different song for season 3. Okay, I'm good now. Oh, good. Perfect. So it probably was because of the fact that I wasn't attached to the house Wi-Fi. Kimorova girl said all her songs are sad. Oh, whose songs are all sad? Taylor Swift? No, I don't think that's true, is it? Unless you're talking about something else. Gianna said, "It is sad. It belongs on the Summer I Turned Pretty." Oh, good reminder that, oh, wait a minute. Blasted? I just realized that I had canceled my Amazon Prime this past year. And that's on Prime, isn't it? Blasted. Oh, well. I did love the Summer I Turned Pretty. Oh, so you said, oh, a little. Okay. Anna said, "I've listened to Taylor today, and the song The Alchemy reminded me of Lukola so much." Arisi said, "As a Swiftie, August is a song about loss, so I don't like to associate with Lukola." Yeah. Kimorova girl said, "I watched The Summer I Turned Pretty." Yeah, I actually enjoy it myself. It's interesting because their acting got better as it went along, but I remember the first few episodes, and I was like, why am I still, what is it about this show that I'm still watching it when I wasn't like the biggest fan of the acting in the beginning, but it grew on me as the time went on. Flower with Stars says, "Get it back to watch My Lady Jane." Oh, okay. Yeah, I just didn't feel like I'd been utilizing, or I was trying to break the habit of using Amazon. I don't know, but I don't know why I canceled my Prime, but I did. a bit back again. Jessica Lynn said, "Team Jer Bear." Sarah Harris says, "Lukola was guilty of sin. Now they're becoming wildest dreams." Oh, hey, ho, ho. Hi. Um, Arisi said, although August is one of my favorite songs of all time. Kimura Girl said, I love Lover and This Love from Taylor. While we're waiting for, okay, also Down Bad, but that is mostly for Luke, Anna says. Okay. While we're waiting for Roni, and let me check if Ronnie's still listed as invited. Is Roni up in this space yet? I know that Roni says she wasn't sure that she was going to get here right when I was going to be starting this. So hopefully I'll see like a little like, I'm here situation. But one of the things that we were talking a lot about was fan culture and celebrity culture. And one of the things I had mentioned in one of the videos that I thought was great to have a conversation about, even though there seemed to be a consensus about people's answer. And so it was one of the comments, I think it was by Kita. Oh, maybe I'm remembering the name incorrectly. But it was in regards to the line between people having opinions and when people are attacking. And I feel like the overwhelming consensus seems to be people said that they felt like it was attacking if people couldn't let other people have a different opinion than their own. And so I guess that was my question to folks who may not have commented on that video. When do you think there is a line that is crossed between people just sharing opinions, because we all have opinions, right? And when does it come to the place where it is becoming unhealthy and people it's what people would define as attacking? What is that? How do people know that that's happening? How do people grow in self-awareness if they're stepping into that kind of like shifting of line or crossing of line? Arisi said, I'm loving the Taylor songs association with Lukola. Could talk about it for hours. But Ho-Ho, answering the question I had just asked was, when you start insulting someone's point of view. Kat says, when opinions turn accusatory. Kimura of a Girl said, when it is directed towards a specific person. Sarah Harris 973 says, harassing others is crossing the line. Becky said, I think part of it is when people try to play off their opinion as fact. Oh, okay. That's that can't, I mean, I think that's partly where people were talking about how sometimes that is when people have a difficulty with allowing folks to have a different opinion than their own. Okay. Lilu said, literally when people won't accept any type of opposite opinion. Dark to Happiness says defamation. Flower with Star says an attack would be if the opinion is problematic in any way, like sexism, racism, body shaming, etc. Dulcie said, yes, I agree. Once you start saying my opinion is wrong or being verbally aggressive for having an opinion. Joanna said, well, opinions are just that, opinions. They aren't always asked for or solicited. That also reminds me of like the conversation around proper context, right? That when you're walking into a space, has the space created an environment, or do people know the rules of engagement when they walk into particular spaces? So like most people who come into my space already know the rules of engagement in this space, but they go to a different live. Thank you, Johari. People go to a different live. They might have different rules of engagement. So when people know the different rules of engagement or whatnot, do people decide to then like choose to be in that space or choose not to be in that space because of that? Thank you, Monica. Miss M says, when you start using mocking or condescending language, emojis, or nicknames. Arisi said, I think when people say things like they are absolute facts and it's not confirmed yet, it's weird. Thanks, Anna. Sarah Harris says, some people don't know the definition of fact or opinion. This is true. I think there has been throughout the last few decades, I feel like a fudging around some of those things that people now are having a difficult time differentiating between an opinion and a fact. That's something I've observed as well. Lauren said, when you aren't open to hearing another opinion, even if you disagree. Yeah. Mona said Mona said when they are pushing others to believe the narrative. Hi, folks that are coming on in. Gianna said, I think everyone can have or has an opinion. Don't be upset when people don't want to hear them. Oh, okay. That is another great important point, is there has to be receptivity with people. And just because we have an opinion does not mean necessarily that people are in a place to hear them. And here's the thing too, I would say, and again, going back to kind of the rules of engagement, depending on the spaces that people are entering, if people are going into a space and they know that certain people are going to engage in certain ways, I always say that when you're entering somebody else's space, if it's much harder to dictate like the space, because it's not, they get to dictate the space because it's their space, right? So like, when do people make the determination for themselves that they can't engage in the rules of engagement of that particular space and just leave, and instead of necessarily demanding that the space change because it doesn't suit them. Miss M said, when people can't silence the opinion and they want to, they attempt to diminish the person. When people can't silence the opinion and they want to, they attempt. Oh, okay, yeah. So sometimes when things are not going people's way, instead of staying on topic of something that's outside of the person, people start to attack the actual person themselves. Yeah, I've seen that happen. Jessica Lynn said, sarcasm doesn't always come through in text either, so things can be taken wrong. That's true. I am such a literal. I'm way too literal. I probably would have sometimes where I might miss some sarcasm. I'd be like, are you being serious? Because yesterday, even when the waiter was like, you can have dessert and it's free. And we're like, are you kidding? Are you joking? I mean, he wasn't, but we weren't sure. Kristen said, I think it's easier to misunderstand people online. Oh, this is very true. Ho says, respecting that everyone has something to offer. You can't be everyone's cup of tea. Absolutely. I'm a strong believer in that. I'm just a strong believer in that. I've said that myself. Lilu says, people be acting like they live with Luke and Nick, and we should take what's they say at face value, which to the person who said toxic. And I can't wait for Roni to come on board to have a discussion around that. But it's interesting because people typically talk about parasocial relationships in a negative sense, because what usually makes the headlines are really unhealthy parasocial relationships. But again, like I said in another video, in that Time magazine, they discuss about how research actually shows the majority of parasocial relationships are healthy. However, because there is this growing, they've seen a growing number of unhealthy attachments more recently than they had before. And they think that maybe part of the reason is because people have a perceived sense of increased access to certain celebrities. Arisa said, I have much love for Lukola, but I always state that it's just my opinion and not a fact. Yet. Hopefully, right? Kristen said, I think people have ingrained communication patterns and it shows in these kinds of settings. Yeah. Yes. That's true too. Okay, so okay, I see Roni. Driving, lost signal, need 5 minutes. Okay, good to know, Roni. Okay, so yeah. All right. And Gianna said, communication is more than just words. It's body language, inflection, emotion, and social media lacks, and it stops there. And Jessica Lynn said, people like to talk. That doesn't mean the talk is true, but some people spread it like it's fact. Yeah, I mean, so I mean that's another thing that I think is like, I think people, I think just the way our brains work, we naturally we naturally have opinions, we naturally speculate. Hi Cloudy Clouds, and thank you. Um, all of those different things. It's just that when you get on social media, the damage can sometimes be far more far reaching than you intend. So there's some things like where you might, you know, have a thought that you share with a friend, and that friend and you can have a conversation, but it's different when it's like hundreds of people potentially, or thousands of people, or hundreds of thousands of people that hear it. And so that's really sometimes a very difficult situation when that happens. Kristen said, I think it takes more effort to communicate respectfully and clearly online. Anna said, damage in social media space can damage you a lot. Oh, yeah, for sure. And going back to Kristen's point of how hard it is to communicate respectfully and clearly online, I think it's one of those things, again, where rules of engagement were created at one point around social media. That's why people excuse bad behavior on social media and saying, like, that's just the way it is. You should expect that. And I've always believed that we don't have to expect that people should show up that way, that we can change rules of engagement if we want to as a collective unit and say, no, we actually do want respectful spaces. We actually do want spaces where people can engage in meaningful ways with each other and it not have to result in negativity or all of those things. Arisa said, these days I get worried how some people take rumors to another level, sharing and spreading hate. Um, and oh, here's another thing that made me think of Arisi. It's just like, in the same way I had asked, like, when does an opinion become perceived to be attacking? Well, what like sometimes I hear the word hate a lot, of spreading hate. So I think I want definitions for people around like what constitutes hate. Because I think this is the difference in opinion of what that looks like is probably why there's certain like demographics or factions or whatever that disagree about what's happening. So if people were on the same page about what's happening is one thing, but I think people really genuinely disagree, where some people are like, this is really hate, and another the person is like, I don't think so. So like, what is people's definition about that? Gianna said, why can't respectful communication just be communication? Well, I mean, I wish it could default to that. Unfortunately, we've seen too often that communication just rarely is respectful. I mean, there's usually a lot of intentionality behind being very like respectful. Lawrence says there aren't enough safe spaces online. Yeah, and the thing is, there's something that happens when there's just a large group of people that come together too, that even if a person on their own would not engage in a particular way, that sometimes it gets fueled by just the large amount of people trying to trying to push a particular thing. And thank you, Martha. So when people always ask, like, why am I strict about like what I allow in my spaces, is because I know that you just give a little bit and it can cause like havoc. Okay, Roni, you're on here. Okay, so let me go somewhere in the bottom here. If you're here. Okay, let's see. Invite. Just, okay. Did I do that right? Hold on. Here it is. Roni!
Okay, does this work?
Yes.
I don't know why my camera's not on though.
Do you know how to turn it on?
Oh, there it is. Okay, hang on.
Okay. I am so glad. Oh, yeah. So, Flower with Star said, herd mentality can get real intense real fast. Yeah, for sure. And I'm not sure if any of my mods are here right now, aside from, well, Roni is one, but because
You know where in the settings the video thing is?
I genuinely don't know. I think it's like on your, is it not on your screen?
It's Hang on.
Um,
Access needed. Hang on.
okay, yeah. So Jessica says, yeah, when people think they have support from others, it definitely encourages them to take it further. Absolutely. Um, HB Pencil said, I think it depends on the intent of the person who is sharing the opinion, a rumor, malicious or not. Um, and the thing is, sometimes a person could have, like, it could be a benign thing. Sometimes somebody says something kind of like casually, and other people in the space might take it and make it mean something more than the person intended, and it gets out of hand. Um, Zira says, "What are we talking about now?" Well, once Ronnie is fully available, then we're going to be talking about fandom and kind of the history, I guess. Not history, but like why fandoms sometimes take a turn. I don't want to misrepresent what Ronnie and I are going to be talking about, but it is going to be around fandom.
Yeah.
Gianna said, I guess I'm just the same person in all spaces. I don't get being kind in real life and a troll online. I agree with you, Gianna. I'm the same way. I do believe it's very important to um to show up authentically and who you are in any place, like whether it's online or in person. I don't think we're meant to, like, I think sometimes people think like, oh, I can let go of all of this stuff and I can be a completely different person online. But I always feel like I want to conduct myself in a way that if I ever saw people in person, that they would never say like, I can't believe you said that to me online. You know, like I would say the same things to their face. Ronnie, are you
Yeah,
there?
I don't think it's gonna let me do the video, so I'm sorry, guys, that you're not gonna be able to connect with like my face while I talk about this. But I initially brought it up to Phoebe because I really started to care about the community that she was trying to build, and I saw a lot of parallels. And honestly, I haven't seen a fandom go through all of the stages of fandoming, which we're going to talk about, so fast as this one since season 3. And I'm sure you guys are I know a lot of you have seen me.
Oh, you're live paused. Oh, right when it was getting good. Back.
Okay.
Okay.
This is new to me. Sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah. So what I was saying was, I know you guys have seen me popping up in the comments here and there. And I was genuinely taking a pause from really integrating into fandoms because I got really, really burnt out because I used to cover them regularly with a blog and community that I created with a bunch of my friends back in 2014. I don't know if some of y'all may have heard of us, where we were called Nerdy Curious. We're still around, but we're just taking a large break right now. But we've covered all kinds of fandoms, from like the bigger ones like Star Wars and Marvel, which I can tell you right now, nothing is as toxic as the Star Wars and Marvel fandoms. And once they get to that size, it's basically an impossible beast to control. And Bridgerton, I want to say, is like, it's like the internet in general is just like a giant playground, and each little fun ride in the playground is each individual fandom. And Bridgerton has its own little ride, and it's kind of sectioned off where people are kind of like, when you're a kid and you pick your kind of people and you concentrate on that area, and you just kind of start creating these lines on where exactly you fit. And a lot of it kind of stems on how soon you got to that fandom. And for whatever reason, they all establish this kind of hierarchy that's unspoken of like, well, the longer I've been here, the more seniority I have on, and they take more ownership on this kind of topic. And a lot of times when it's really unhealthy is they take such an ownership that they just don't want to share it with anyone else. And if someone new comes in and tries to share their perspective on it, and if it deviates just slightly from their understanding, they immediately are in, well, you're in outcast mode. And so a lot of times, as new waves of people kind of come into a fandom, they tend to congregate together. So Phoebe, I think something that you did, and I know like when I found the community that you were starting to build, it's such an organic process to where you were like, I'm here. I want to find my people because I don't have anyone in my, day to day that I can talk
Yes.
to about this. And that is like the most organic way to enter a fandom. That's usually the most common way someone does. And it's like the best because fandom at its core is building community, finding connection in something that we all just care about and enjoy. And one of the main reasons why we called it Nerdy Curious is because everyone is nerdy about something. Being a nerd about something is just something that you know so much about that you can talk about it for hours. So similar to Phoebe she's nerdy about bocce. She's nerdy about sports, and she's nerdy about Bridgerton. Like everyone is nerdy about Lukola right now in this room. So yeah, it's just one of those things. But I think a lot of times with fandom, from what I've been seeing, particularly in Bridgerton, and just this last week, which again is just insane to me on how quickly it happened, was you've got your hierarchy of folks that have been following Pollen and Lukola since season 1. You've got the new wave of fans that came in for season 3. And then even that section got broken up by, let's just focus on Lukola, let's just focus on Nick. And then everything that went on around Luke kind of broke off another branch where it really starts getting messy. And I know I heard you start talking about parasocial relationships, is when people start self-identifying on certain things, where if you're not getting the full picture, which we're never going to be getting the full picture on a lot of topics, particularly pertaining to their personal lives, and people just start connecting their own personal experience, which is an impossible ask to tell someone, don't connect your own personal experience and perspective to something. That's the whole reality of things. But having expectations on someone that you don't know personally is really hurtful to you. So that's definitely one of those boundaries to set just for yourself and your mental health. Because it's okay to be really, excited about these people. And I can safely say, since 2014 and before that, when I was getting involved in fandoms, what Luke and Nick have is not normal. We all recognize that. We all see it. And I think that fascination and their press tour, which was inexplicably long, that was also not normal, really just enticed people. And because the world is the dumpster fire that it is right now, their little beacon of like love bubble that they were exuding just from their friendship, regardless on what the label of their relationship is, they were really a flame for everyone, to where we were like, wow, look at this beautiful, shiny, warm, lovable thing that we all kind of gravitated towards and we all kind of started fixating on. And it's not a bad thing. And that's what they were kind of putting forward. And they kind of gave us a boundary around that too, where they were like, yeah, we're totally open to accepting this kind of love and reaction and all of this. I think where that line blurred is because we were getting fed so much content. And then when it started to kind of die down, people just had an immediate emotional reaction of like, you're starving me. I was really dependent on this to keep me going in my day to day. What's happening? And it's I just want to let everyone know you're not crazy. These are perfectly normal feelings that you're feeling. And I'm seeing all of these different reactions. And as Phoebe has always said from the beginning when she started the community, which is honestly the only live that I really tune into fully, she's the only one I'm subscribed to, because this is just the kind of community that I really gravitate towards. She has always said that there's space for everyone. The only time where I was just kind of doing like that kind of grimacing sort of stretchy face is when some of the content that people are fixating on does lean more towards the personal side of things and the gossip side of things, because that inevitably ends up hurting people. Inadvertently, it'll hurt the celebrity. Ultimately, they'll be okay, but it still will hurt their reputation if enough people in the industry sees the public talking badly about them. Particularly if they're just starting out. I have seen it before. One of the toxic examples that happened recently was one of the guys from House of Dragons. I don't know if anyone else sees House of Dragons. He was like, just in his character, and this is all the fictional part of it, not even his personal life, people didn't like what his character was doing, and he started getting death threats. So he had to just abandon social media altogether. That's happened to multiple Star Wars actors. That has happened to just a bunch of different creatives because of the accessibility that social media affords. This is something that people haven't had to deal with in the past. When I sent Phoebe that video of Josh Hartnett and I was looking at those comments, yes, Josh never had to deal with social media, and I'm sure it was still difficult for him. Yes, Josh was 21 years old and Luke right now is 31. Age, honestly, and we all understand this to some degree, is just a number, because ultimately what happens is experience. Your life experience is what determines how you are going to react to a particular situation and whatever it is that happens to you. How do we know that Luke, as a 31-year-old man, is actually capable of handling this kind of extreme push into fame than Josh was at 21? Like, how do we know he's more capable of that? We don't, because we don't know him. And even with folks who are like, yeah, I mean, I've met him a couple of times. You don't know him. You just don't. You may have a feeling of certain things, but also people put on a lot of faces. It takes you multiple meetings to really get to know a person. And it's okay to feel, worried and concerned and everything, but expressing it so outwardly, so publicly, the internet is forever. And building your entire content around gossip, I find questionable, and I worry for those people, because ultimately maybe some truth will come out. And if you were really fixating and being really toxic about whatever criticism that you were kind of putting together based off of the information you were getting and your interpretation of it, it's not going to look good on you either. So I want people to just be very mindful and be careful in setting boundaries for themselves, so that you do not have just too much, that there's not too much of a negative impact on you as an individual and as a person, and you can fan in a healthy way. And there has been extensive I'm sorry, Phoebe, I'm just going on a rant.
Roni, no, don't apologize, because I find you so intriguing. Like, I am like soaking it all in, so please keep going.
Okay, well, I mean, just feel free to jump in and tell me to stop, because I can.
No. I'm so intrigued right now. I will if I have something that I must say, but no, I really love what you're saying right now.
Okay. I'm very passionate about this, just because I've been doing so much research on this and just kind of just doing like an oversight for it. And as I say, when the pandemic hit, our content really shifted to examining the parallels of fandom with what was going on in the day-to-day of society, because 2020 was really a brink where just civilization just kind of had a wake-up call. And people, it's all about communication. If you have good communication and everyone is really approaching a topic as as whimsical and as trivial as a show, if you know how to communicate on a show in a healthy way and interact with people in a healthy manner, imagine how amazing the conversations would be on stuff that actually matter. So we were constantly doing that parallel of like, this is how you have a really healthy conversation of fandom within fandom. And this is how you can translate it into your day-to-day life when you're having that hard conversation about religion, race, what have you, in your day-to-day life. And so all of this genuinely does matter, as trivial as it might seem. And you may end up having friends that are like, we don't get it. We don't get why you're so emotional and passionate about this show. That usually happens, and this is why people end up building these communities, because your best friend in real life is like, you know, you're a little weird. And so then everyone just kind of has to find their little niche. But yeah, I think all of this is really, really important. I think everyone should feel validated that whatever you're feeling, it is genuine. It's what you're feeling. Nobody can tell you that that's not correct. The main thing is that when you're feeling triggered by something or someone, is to really just take a step back and process that. Because honestly, we don't know where everyone is at. We don't know what everyone is dealing with. I have 500 million doctor's appointments right now. I'm not feeling my best, but I'm not going to take that out on like random people online who are just feeling, extremely passionate about Luke's personal life. I'm not going into those spaces though. Like, I'm not going to willingly, like, if I'm having a bad day, I'm not going to go to the shipper or to Claire's live and be like, what are y'all talking about now? Why are we focusing about A? And so it's just one of those things where you just kind of have to measure yourself and put yourself where you can be your best self. And that in turn makes the fandom just a lot better and a lot healthier. The likelihood of obviously this happening, and Phoebe was touching on this because I heard her say, you can't really control what other people are going to do, but you can only control how you're going to react and what you're going to say. And as easy as it is to just fly off the handle, still have that thought, that reality check on yourself that ultimately this doesn't matter. Like, there's no reason to just kind of lose it over, a show and over a fan, over something that's supposed to bring you joy. Ultimately, it's supposed to bring you joy.
Yeah, and Ronnie, I do want to speak real quickly, because one of the biggest things that I've always said is that I don't typically like speak on other content creators, and simply because I know that it is difficult to do content, and so what I will say, what I appreciated what you said is that you know what the content is going to be for a content creator, and that's why you actively choose for yourself what you need. And so I just want to make it clear to folks, like, all of us make our own personal choices about what kind of information we want to be exposed to. Yes. And that's what I appreciate with what Ronnie's saying. It's because certain content creators may have made it clear that is their content. And so there's folks that want that content, and that's why they're there, because there is an audience for it. Right. And so I just want to make that clear, because I always like wince whenever, I guess, any content creator brings up any other content creator.
Oh, sure.
Even though I know that I'm not the one who brought it up, but it just, because I just feel like it's hard to be a content creator. And then if people dislike a content creator, then everybody ends up ganging up on that person or whatnot. So
absolutely. That's a good segue to what I was going to actually say, because the only reason I use that as an example is because people here would directly understand on what I'm trying to say. Because I have nothing against anyone, which is why I'm part of Phoebe's kind of community that she's been building, because I do think there's room for everyone. I did mention that I do worry a little bit on folks that focus a lot on that particular type of content. But again, to each their own, like, do you, boo. But I think a lot of things too, and the next step that usually happens when we get to this toxic point is people start monitoring. Similarly to how there was a whole thing about people monitoring likes and dislikes and stuff on celebrity social medias, people start monitoring who's following who. If you guys start seeing any of that toxic behavior where people start saying, well, if you're following this content creator and you're following this content creator, you're a hypocrite because they don't like each other. Please don't let that get to that level, because that's usually what is the next step that I've seen at in these fandoms, where they start monitoring and trying to police who's following who. And that really that is like the most toxic. It ends up just fracturing everything. So yeah, there's room for everyone. You just have to kind of enjoy it, and try to just kind of stay in that lane. If anyone ends up triggering you or getting triggered, just kind of keep your distance from it. Don't feed into it. It's just it's a hard thing to navigate, but ultimately, if you find your little space to where it still brings you joy, that's the most important thing. If you ever find yourself not feeling joy anymore, that is definitely the time to just jump ship and just enjoy it on your own, or again, find another group. And I can safely say that I've jumped from fandom to fandom whenever I felt that it was the need to just kind of have a bit of an escape. I have to commend Phoebe for creating this space, because it's really difficult to kind of maintain that kind of level of just balance that you've been able to cultivate in such a short amount of time. But again, the way that this fandom has gone through, like, I don't want to say like it's similar to like the stages of grief.
I was just going to ask you that. Like you said, it went through all of the stages in such a short amount of time. Like, what are those, like, what are those
So
stages?
yeah, so like as an individual person who's entering a fandom, it's the initial entrance, recognizing of the hierarchy, finding your level of entry, establishing the narrative that you really want to kind of live in. When the traction starts picking up is usually when you start seeing the chaos agents come in. And then because that's usually fed by social media, because as soon as there's some popularity and there's some movement, a lot of people who are on the outside that aren't even part of the fandom start creating all of these anonymous accounts and try to infiltrate into the fandom, and they just like to create havoc. That happens in every fandom. This isn't special.
So there are outside agitators that usually come in.
Absolutely, 110%, because all they want to do and a lot of times you'll be surprised that those people are sometimes funnily enough adjacent to the industry, because they just like to stir it up to have more conversation happening at more high intervals.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's happened previously for like larger properties. I don't want to say that that's happening here now, because there's absolutely no way to find out for real. Like, I'm not a hacker. There's no way. but it has been known to happen. A lot of times it's just folks that are just bored. They're just bored. They see that there's something trending and they're like, well, I'm just going to come in and, just stir the pot. So that's everything from like establishing a narrative to the chaos agents to spiraling, which is where we're at right now. And then I think we're starting on blaming and division, unfortunately. from what I've
Mm.
been seeing. And then there's usually a fracturing stage. And then at point of fracture, depending on how long that lasts, there's usually like a reestablishment of smaller groups, funnily
Mm.
enough. So and then it just kind of cycles. That's typically how it ends up working. It's a circle. It's not really like there's no clear start and stop, because some people do their own research, and this is usually me. This is my type of fanning, where I find something, I dig it, I watch from the outside for a bit, I learn about it, and then I'm like, I like this person, and then I hold on for dear life. So Phoebe ended up being that person in this fandom, because I was like, I like this girl.
Oh,
So
I really appreciate you, Ronnie, because I love the way your mind works.
I appreciate that. I really do. Because I'm a nerd. That's my natural state. But I mean, I understand. I feel like this is something that more women experience on a more emotional connection to fandom than men do. What men end up doing, and the only time that they get super irrational and emotional about something, is when their fandom is tied to their childhood.
Mm.
And that's where I'm saying the Star Wars fandom is one of the most toxic, because that's where you hear a lot of fanboys saying, it's ruining my childhood. You're ruining my
Mm.
childhood. It's getting too woke, which was the popular thing that was being said back when they started to integrate more women and characters of color into the Star Wars universe. And so there's a lot of parallels there. I feel like most of the time, with fandoms like Bridgerton, fandoms like Outlander is another one, which is comparable. Women just care more about like the details. Women care more about the characters. Women care more about the actors and like everything else that kind of goes into a show. From what I've been seeing, I don't want to say that this is a universal truth. I just want to say this is just from my perspective, from what I've been seeing of just like the differences on how people fan. Because there is a distinct kind of communication difference that happens. It's usually not quite so surface. Because even with something like Bridgerton or an Outlander, where there's a lot of sexy scenes, women tend to. It's kind of a beautiful attachment. It's not just visceral. So there's just, it's all just very interesting. Like there's so many other kind of things that talking about fandom can like kind of deviate into, but the general thing of why I proposed having this chat with Phoebe was we were all seeing this chaos happen in this past week, and I was just kind of hoping to have everyone like just kind of pull everyone from the ledge of just like we have a moment to just kind of take a breath and find that healthy kind of fanning habit for us as individuals that will hopefully turn this ship around, or actually put the ship back on course. So yeah, I think if we just don't lose sight of why we're all here in the first place. And I'm still on the ship. I'm 10 toes on the ship, on the actual Lukola ship. I feel like like it's going to happen at some point. I think it's an inevitability. I don't think we're crazy. I've never seen anything like this before. And all of the times that I've been following any fandom, any interactions between two celebrities, this is just beyond. I have never seen anything like this. I
Mm.
don't know what they're trying to pull, but it's not normal.
Hey, Ronnie. So I know a bit back somebody said, "Hey, are you all actually reading the comments?" So it made me think about the fact that some folks may have questions.
Yes.
So if there are any folks that may have questions for Ronnie or myself, feel free to ask those questions now, and then I'll ask it to Ronnie. And if I have any particular thing to add to it, I might. But any questions for Ronnie? Thank you, Anna, and thank you for all those folks that have been giving gifts to myself and to Ronnie. And if folks are not following Ronnie, I encourage you to, because I mean, I think.
I just want to tell you guys, like, I mean, you don't have to if you don't want to. I mean, I don't really create content on my personal page at the moment. I'm still kind of trying to figure out what I want to do with the Nerdy Curious page. If you guys want to see any of our old content, we're on YouTube, we're on Instagram. Everything is at Nerdy Curious. You can go back and kind of just see what past conversations have been like. I appreciate it, Anna. But yeah, like I'm still kind of trying to figure out what we want to do moving forward, because I did genuinely get burnt out, because it's a lot. It's a lot of psychological weight, especially with everything that was going on, and after the pandemic, and like my personal world kind of imploded a little bit. So we all just kind of pulled back. It's myself and 3 of my other girlfriends, which we were internet friends. We met on Twitter. And we actually planned a trip similar to what Phoebe's trying to do. We all met in San Diego Comic-Con, and luckily none of us turned out to be murderers.
That is also hopefully the plan when we go to London and Galway.
Yeah.
Or New York City. Yeah. Or Brazil.
Yep. So,
well, here's some of the questions. Carol, and I feel like you may have answered this already, but maybe not fully. But what other fandoms have you been a part of? Caroline wants to know.
Oh, Lord. Okay, so I was I was briefly part of Star Wars. I exited that like real fast. I kind of kept that one to myself and a handful of friends. Marvel. I'm deep into Marvel. Tap danced into DC a little bit. I am a comic book reader, so that's always just kind of been my own personal hobby. I am Outlander adjacent because I am a Richard Rankin fan specifically. And I want to say he was probably like my first big dive back into celebrity during the pandemic, because he became really, really accessible. So I actually built a relationship. Well, I don't want to say built a relationship, a sort of relationship with him, where he was accessible enough to the point where we were like actually like talking. But even again, guys, like even if you start talking to a celebrity, like you don't know what's going on. It's just all kind of surface. So I mean, I didn't take it too seriously. What else have I done? As I say, I'm tap dancing into Bridgerton. It's been mostly like a Nick Luke situation, because again, this is a freak of nature event, guys. Like, we are lucky to witness it and to be a part of it, because I don't think this is ever going to happen again. There's that, and then I mean, you know, back in the day when we were growing up and like Backstreet Boys and like all of that was going on.
Good point.
You know, because all of that was genuinely the start of fandom. Like back before the social media stuff was really in place, like the boy bands were the start of all of this.
That's a good point.
And like Tiger Beat, Teen Beat,
bring it back.
All of those little magazines and stuff. That was our social media. That's how we like, you know, it did all that stuff. So and it just transitioned in like such a like high powered way. I think the amount of access that celebrities are kind of forced by the industry to now give to their fans is excessive. I don't think that should be part of their job description. I think it's just added stress. And unfortunately, a lot of studios have imposed it on them, where they just need to have a certain amount of numbers and a certain amount of activity. I actually am very impressed by Luke Thompson and Claudia for not having social media and just standing on that principle. I'm very impressed by them for being like, no, we're not. We're just not. No. So, yeah. I think I'll say that that's probably about it, at least that I can think of right now.
Yeah. And Taryn actually also asked if what other fandoms I've been involved in. And at first I was like, I don't think I have been involved. Like when I think about like be really, really involved. I mean, I definitely have liked things a lot, but I don't think I was part of like a Team Pacey fandom. Like I don't, like
Yeah.
to me, fandom is like just this kind of immersion with other fans.
Right.
And I just never had that. And the closest I would say is Russell Wilson because I'm a big Seahawks fan, and obviously he's no longer a Seahawk, but that is probably where I definitely know I've been in a fandom is around Russell Wilson. But when you talked about like boy bands, I still don't think I was in a fandom then because again, I didn't really engage with other fans, but NKOTB, New Kids on the Block, I was a big fan of. I used to cry whenever Joey McIntyre was saying "Please Don't Go, Girl,"
Oh yeah,
and I'm like, I won't. I was it's sad, but not sad, but like it just made
not
me.
that. It's just, I mean, we all like our thing, and I kind of blur the line on fandom to where, like, if you're fanning on something, not necessarily with like a large group of people, but even like a small group of people, I think it's still like a baby fandom because you're still really, really diving in and enjoying something. So, like, if I go into that definition, then like the Dawson's Creek, the Buffy the Vampire Slayer, like any of those shows that when we were growing up and it was like an after school activity, and then you jump on the phone with your bestie and you're like, oh my God, did you watch that?
This is true. My former best friend and I, when Dawson kissed Joey for the very first time, we were both
girl.
screaming on the phone. He was like, "Oh my word!" and I was like, "I know."
Yep. Yeah. Those are the best. Those are the best.
Very. I mean,
times.
even though I was Team Pacey after Pacey like was allowed to be in the picture in a significant way, but that was season 1 when all of that happened. So of course I was still Team Dawson at that time because there was no team. It was just Dawson. At that
It was
point.
just Dawson. Yeah. I mean, it was a show, it's just, but then we grew up and got smart.
Although I am still like, oh, Joshua Jackson. But anyways, BCT Flower Girl 7 said, is the trip going to be just for subscribers? I mean, at this point, yes. Just because, I mean, I'm not saying that's a hard and fast rule, but it just feels safe. Some parts of it feel safer, but other parts of it also is just like the consistent engagement that I do potentially can have with subscribers and just the communications that we can have in a subscribership that is not necessarily something I would put out in like a what do you call it, like the general audience, because I don't know how to describe it, but for right now, yes, the answer is yes. If that changes, I'll let you know, but I think it's probably going to be a yes. Not that people, yeah, no, I'll just say yes. Romancing.mrs.Coughlin said, do you also think that they're not risking everything to be together right now in order to not interfere with their work relationship?
I think so, because in all honesty, particularly for women, it's really, and I think Nicola has actually talked about this, like time is really finite for an actor, unfortunately. And particularly for women because it's a very sexist industry. Meryl Streep has talked about like when she hit 40, she was only getting offered witches. Like
Really?
that's just, like that's just the nature. Like once you hit 40 as a woman in the industry, they're like, oh, that girl's out to pasture. Like let's just hope she just kind of disappears. So yeah, I think it's shifting a little bit, which is good. Plus Nicola has like, she's found like the fountain of youth because she looks like 12. So, but, and she's absolutely stunning. So, it's amazing just the powerhouse that she's kind of moving towards. And I'm very excited to see what she ends up doing. But I do genuinely feel that, right now she's probably focused on that, and rightly so. And in all honesty, if I was her friend, I'd probably be like, focus on this, build yourself up. Regardless on who the dude is, I'd probably just be like, is it worth it? To potentially ruin something. And in all honesty, if it's meant to be, it won't pass them by. Regardless, we don't know. They may have already had this conversation. We genuinely don't know. And I think this is why a lot of times folks spiral and we get into these like kind of gossipy conversations on what certain people are doing right now and whatnot. We don't know if they've already had a conversation. We don't know if they've already discussed the nature of their relationship. I'm sure having all of the people around them reacting to them the way that they are, including their co-stars and their close friends saying, yo, your chemistry is overwhelming, yo. I'm sure that they're both like, they have to, at least Nicola has to be aware of it. I can't imagine that they're oblivious to the whole thing. They would have to be so insular in order to just have absolutely no clue, which I can't imagine them not having any clue, because they have to be so in touch with their emotions and their day-to-day. That's like the whole point of their job. Mm-hmm. So they have to recognize it. They have to have had a discussion on it. We're not going to be privy to that. Like, we're just not going to know. And I feel like at some point it's going to be one of those things like similar to Tom and Zendaya, where they're dating completely different people. Some time goes by, and unfortunately, remember, guys, we had to wait a year and a half until Tom and Zendaya were like, all right, let's give it a go. Same with Ryan and Blake, where I think it was like 2 years of like playing tiddlywinks before they got together. And so, yeah, I think it's like there's a long game. We got to play the long game and just wait. But I mean, yeah, maybe one day we'll get one of those random photos like Tom and Zendaya making out in a car. And then everyone's going to be like, I knew it. So you can only hope.
Well, so Busy NP said, have you ever shipped anyone else other than Lukola? I mean, and I'm guessing like, shipped in a sense of like real people rather than just shipping characters.
I have not.
I'm guessing, maybe.
Yeah, I have never shipped real people, and I have always tried not to, because
How about Tom Daya?
I honestly didn't, because I got on the Tom Daya train late. I didn't even know that anything was going on until like, I want to say a few months before an announcement came, because I started seeing the chatter, but I hadn't been like really paying attention to it. Plus, they did a really good job at like their chemistry in their interviews was palpable, but it wasn't this palpable. As I said, like this is something else entirely. Like you can taste, hear, see, like feel everything to the 10th degree with Luke and Nick when they're chit-chatting about, whatever random thing, whatever random interview they were having. Like it's so, all 5 senses are tingling when they're together. So this isn't, yeah, I don't know. I was into Twilight a bit, but I never shipped them either. It was just kind of like, oh, they're together, cool. But that was also kind of a boundary that I put on myself at the time, where I was just like, I mean, people inevitably kind of break up. Either it works or it doesn't. I don't want to put too much pressure on something that has nothing to do with me. Like ultimately, like that was the boundary that I put on myself. Which I think I'm still kind of harboring a little bit of that just for self-protection. And that's just it. Like, you have to self-protect somehow. If it's going to break your heart, like utterly destroy you, if Luke and Nick don't get together, take a step back. Just try to protect yourself around that. But I'm optimistic. I'm hopeful. I think it would bring a lot of people joy, just innocently, like, it would just be really sweet to see them together, because we see everything that's going on. It would just be like a nice little reward. as a fan. But you know,
Yeah, and that's one of the things that, I've had conversations with folks that are like, I'm docking or I'm getting off the ship or whatever it might be. And I always say to folks, like, do what is genuinely healthy for you.
yeah,
And if you need to dock and if you need to get off the ship, then do that, because shipping by nature was supposed to be just fun. It's
yep,
supposed to be lighthearted. It's not something that's supposed to wreck your life or wreck your mental health or wreck your like, it should bring you joy and it should be all those things. And if it's not doing that, it is best to just step away. And one of the things I've said to folks is, I I'm a strong believer in the end game. I believe Lukola is going to be endgame. I think that if they want to be endgame, they can be endgame. And yet at the same time, that is up to them, that personal decision for them to decide whether they want to pursue that or not. And I said, whether or not Luke and Nicola ever get together, my support for them as actors is going to be there, because the reason I got involved in caring about things, of course, is like their promo tour made me see their, I mean, I think when you see kind of that connection that is very rare,
yeah,
you can't help but gravitate towards it, because everybody, well, I don't know if everybody loves love, but I love love.
yeah,
And so it was so I mean, I don't know if it's magnetic, but it was so palpable. I can't even say the word, but like you could just feel it, you could just sense it from where you were. And so you just root for that. And at the same time, it's their life to live
yeah,
at the end of the day.
yeah.
Melissa wants to know, do you think Luke T and Claudia will have their teams run their PR for their seasons?
I've been wondering that. I've actually had that conversation with some of the other girls at Nerdy Curious, because we think that it could go one of two ways. Either they're going to create temporary accounts and have them and give them social media managers that give them a schedule, as like an actual like clockwork sort of thing of like, post a behind the scenes thing here, do this and that. I don't know if we've seen, or if anyone knows, because I haven't done a deep dive on this, on if they've seen like Claudia and Luke with their phones taking photos, to the maybe not to the extent that Nick does, but that maybe they just do in order to like collect their own memories. But if they're already doing that, then they already have content available, to where either the show is going to require them to create temporary accounts for the promotions of their seasons, or they will have accounts created for them that someone completely unrelated to them is going to be managing for them. So I think those are probably going to be the two options. If they end up going the complete opposite way, where they're like, no, they won't need to create any accounts, and they're not going to have that much of a presence online, I'll be very surprised, but impressed. Because I think a lot of shows need to move in that direction anyway. I think that's a lot of pressure to put on the actors to also create content for social media. I mean, I'm impressed Nicola did it, but she's also just amazing. So.
TLR Vibes asked this question. I'm going to answer this question, and only answer it briefly. I was trying to go up in my brain and saying, do I want to read this question? But I will. It says, what do you think about content creators coming for or canceling others in the fandom? And something I said earlier is I really don't speak on other content creators, simply because, of course, I have my personal opinions. And of course, there's just different choices I would personally make. I mean, again, maybe that's my answer. I make different decisions, and they make different decisions. And so, as folks that choose to support content creators, people make a decision whether they support it or don't support it. So it's really hard. It's hard for me because this is not like being a president or anything, but like people always say, like, when you, how do I describe this? I think I had this discussion with somebody. I said the grace that you give others is the grace that you receive.
Mm-hmm.
And I, even though there's things that I feel like, oh, I would never do this or I would never do that, the minute I think there's any pride that comes into thinking that, oh, like I would make good decision and another wouldn't, that's a dicey that's a dicey place. So I don't like to. I have my opinions, as I usually keep it to myself. Um, and that's why I was like, I don't know if I want to answer that, because my own answer, I guess, is like I would choose differently. It's my only answer.
I can speak on it from a general perspective of saying
Okay.
that this isn't unique. This also happens in a lot of fandoms where people who are so passionate and are content creating on a particular fandom end up either being pitted against each other for having a few disagreements, or they have some sort of thing between each other where they just end up just going in opposite directions. As someone who is enjoying a fandom, and if you're following both content creators and you're seeing this kind of tension, it has nothing to do with you. If someone is giving you if you're going into a space and someone is giving you an ultimatum, exit the space. And if it's getting to a point where that's like that obsession is kind of overtaking the content, exit the space, because you got to protect yourself. Don't roll around in the mud slinging that's being thrown about. It's got nothing to do with the rest of the people in the fandom. It's just those two individuals, for whatever reason. And give everyone grace, because we again, similarly to not knowing what's going on with Nick and Luke, we don't know what is going on in individual creators' lives, why they're reacting a certain way, why they're being triggered by something. We don't know what's going on. And if they're not going to be outwardly explaining, hey, I'm going through an illness, someone I love is, going through something, I'm stressed out, I feel like crap, whatever, we don't know. We have to give everyone grace. We can't be going around, blaming people for, willy-nilly, as Luke likes to say. It's just, yeah, like we've got to treat each other with grace and respect, even when it's really difficult to do it.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. I 100% agree with that, Ronnie. Like I have always said, like our response, like at least my response, shouldn't be dictated by another person's response. Like I remember there was a situation where I apologized to a person, and the person had some things to apologize to me for, but they never did, right?
Right.
And I said, you never know how true an apology is until you offer an apology, you don't get an apology back, and you don't want to take it back. Right. Because sometimes people apologize to manipulate another person to apologize back to them.
Right.
And so it's like either your apology is real or your apology is not. And so I try to make sure I go with the situation that had happened with a particular person, when they chose not to apologize, but I had apologized, I was like, well, it doesn't change the fact that I did have something to apologize for,
Right.
Just because they didn't choose to.
Yeah.
But Becky asked, you already have subscribing up and running? I do, Becky. If you just go to my page, it's under subscription, and it's $5.99 per month.
Well worth it.
Oh, thanks, Ronnie. Let's see. I'm trying to find another question potentially here. It's kind of weird what the chat is looking like, because for some reason, like things are shaded, and I was like, yeah. So I was like, why is it shaded? I mean, like I think they want my approval of something. I'm like, but why is it shaded already? But anyways, this is when I'm like, I do miss my having mods. Let's see. Is there any
not here?
Sorry, what?
Is Minnie not here?
I have not seen Minnie today. So let's see here. I'm gonna continue to scroll. A lot of it is just back and forth with folks. Hopefully with respect with each other. Because sometimes the minus of doing things where no one else is monitoring is sometimes folks might like use that as the opportunity
Oh well, yeah, well,
to
that very well.
yeah, so I would always say like I hope like that's not the case, and I think people are not going to hopefully engage in a way that is disappointing. um Ev said, why are Luke and Nicholas so perfect together? I love that. What, do you want a thought on that, Ronnie?
Um, I just think that they just kind of they're so opposite that they're the same. It's a
Mm.
weird thing where like because she's just so not loud is a poor word, but like he's so quiet and contained, and she's just so like confident and like loud for back lack of a better word. Like she's just she's like the sun and he's the moon,
Mm.
and it just works. Um, and I think, I mean, that's actually the perfect analogy for them because they the gravity is involved because there's
Mm.
just there's such a big pool between them. Um, and they've already stated like the commonalities that they have as well, where they like to like when they feel like their energy's been like downgraded and they need to go rest and whatever, and they have this communication supposedly where they don't need to actually say anything, they can just look at each other and know what they think. I mean, guys, come on, wake up. It's so frustrating. Like, this is what I'm telling you. Like, all of this stuff that they're dropping in these interviews, like, how can people not
You just
want...
wonder if they hear themselves.
Yeah, like, dude, come
Like,
on. Which,
if you were not you, would you not be telling your friend like hello?
yeah, like, I don't know. Like, bro. Yeah, I just, I don't think, I am 41 years old, guys. I don't think I have ever had like these kinds of people, or have been invested in these kinds of people and have me like have these little giggly outbursts. Like, this isn't normal. And it's something that Phoebe was saying too about like that light that they have, that's kind of attracted everyone to them. I think a lot of us live our lives in a very like careful way to where we don't feel too much in our personal lives. And so when we see some like a demonstration of love that's so blatant, whether it be friendly or romantic, we're all like, man, it exists.
Yeah.
Especially when you don't see it on the reg. And so, yeah, like I will fully admit I'm a little bit jaded. I won't deny it. That's just the reality of my existence, which again, some people will relate and some people won't. But from my perspective, it was definitely one of those like, wow, that's nice. I haven't seen that in a minute.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Romancing.mrs.coughlin said, did the previous couples promote? I remember them promoting, but they not this extensively, probably because of the pandemic. Ronnie, do you remember?
Yeah, the pandemic and the strike.
Oh yeah, the strike.
Yeah.
My word, I forgot about the strike.
Yeah, the strike messed everything up. I feel
my
like
word.
Johnny
ruined the 100 for me.
Yeah, Johnny. Oh yeah, I know a lot of people were devastated about that. I never joined that one, but I had a lot of friends that were always talking about that. I think Johnny and Kate would have hit the ground running had the strike not been happening. Yeah.
I think that you've already answered this question, but the person might not have been here. But Swear Not By said, what is the wildest fandom ever to exist?
The wildest fandom. Can you add to that question as far as like wild in what sense? In a positive or a negative?
I mean, since this is probably so far, like so old of a question, why don't you give both like definitions of what you think of when you hear the wildest.
Mm. Oh, okay. The wildest, I think, that is not like absolutely like just imbued in a lot of negativity, is the supernatural fandom. That
Mm.
fandom is wild. And again, predominantly women. There are a lot of dudes mixed in, but I mean, two male leads, very good looking male leads, if I do say so myself. Um, Jensen Ackles is just grade A. But yeah, that I wouldn't. I personally didn't have the strength to touch that fandom with a 10-foot pole. Because it's intense. Like it's really intense. One of the girls from NC, her name is Jamie. She is a big Supernatural fan. Her and her husband, they have tattoos. They were like deep into it. I love the show, as I say, but I'm a peripheral fan because I was just like, I can't get to that level of intensity that you guys want me to get into.
Mm.
So yeah, that's a wild fandom. Game of Thrones is another one, Tam. Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
Now, because I'm so far behind on my chat, it sounds like you're like probably on the bottom and I'm still up here. But
Yeah.
Kimura of a girl had said, so with being new to fandom, how do you handle your mental health with those behaviors? And I don't know what those behaviors mean, but maybe you can kind of recall,
Yeah.
but maybe not.
I'm
What
assuming
you would say?
I'm assuming she's just talking about like the toxicity that you
Mm,
see.
gotcha. Yeah.
Um, I think managing your way through a fandom is very similar to managing your way through life. So when you see people having just like, obviously in your day-to-day life, people are a little bit less blatant because you have to actually interact face to face, which always puts a little bit of a barrier and buffer because people are like, well, I can't say this and this because I might get hit. And unfortunately, I think that's why people be wild in on the internet. Because I mean, we're not all like right next to each other. But I think you just kind of have to follow the same principles where like you guys all know you have that instinct already inside of you where if something doesn't feel right or if something doesn't sit well when it's typed or said, at least if how you're interpreting it, because again, since it's typed, you don't know the intonation. If you're not good at picking up sarcasm, that's another one too. It's taken me a really, really long time as a communicator. I love sarcasm. It's my home base. But I know full well that some people just don't, for one reason or another, just can't pick up on sarcasm. So I have to be really mindful of when I drop it. And if honestly, I think a lot of content creators need to be, if they want to be all inclusive and they want to have a large base in their community, they really need to be mindful of how they're presenting information and how well they're communicating. And I know a lot of people kind of dig their heels in on like saying, being an individual and doing the things that they want to do and how they want to do them. I'm all for that and I get it because we all need to be unique, but be receptive to feedback. And then you can decide on if you want to actually do something with that feedback or not. Because that can then be a clarification to your audience on like, okay, this is for me. Or no, this isn't. And then they can go off on their merry way and find where they need to be. But, just you can't please everyone. You just can't. Don't stress, as a content creator, don't stress yourself out trying to please everyone. That's how I got burnt out. So from experience as a Xennial people pleaser, don't do it.
Angela, the Simstigator, said, I have a question. What do you say to people who say the interviews were just PR?
I mean, they were. if you're looking at it black and white on paper, they were PR. If anyone comes at you and says it's PR, you say, yeah, and you walk away. Because you have a deeper understanding of what's under there that other people are never going to understand. And you don't even know if like half of the people that are agitators that are just like, it's just PR. You don't even know if they've even seen any of the interviews. You don't even know if they're just there just to play devil's advocate. So there's no point in arguing. You just walk away and go to the group that we all know. We all know. You know that this is a safe space. We know it. It's more than PR. Because as I say, guys, I've been watching this stuff for so long. This isn't normal. I will keep saying it. Even if nothing happens. Even if nothing happens with Luke and Nook, this is not normal. This is not normal behavior.
I agree. I mean, and I agree with what you said too about the reality that, part of it is PR, public relations. That is just the reality of like, they are doing PR.
Yeah.
And and the other side of it is like, it was not just PR. But you're right. If usually as you're engaging with someone, if they are there for an actual conversation, or if they're there to just try to instigate certain things, certain reactions, certain responses from folks. And if it's a real conversation, then you have it. But if it's not a real conversation, you just say what you said or suggested and just keep it moving, because it's a waste of energy.
Yeah.
Otherwise.
Guys, if you want a realistic timeline, just to see that comparison, a typical PR campaign is 3 to 4 weeks. And it's 3 to 4 weeks for a large project. If it's an indie project, if it's Oscar bait, they have different timelines and different markets that they need to go to promote. So like a Marvel film or something of that, like a Spielberg film, something that has a massive audience, it's still 3 to 4 weeks. They're not out pimping their stuff out for 6 months. That is insanity to me. And usually within those 3 or 4 weeks, and they're hitting all of their interviews, and they may be going to 3 or 4 large markets, they release and extend the release of those interviews within a manner of those 6 months or whenever the release date is. And it's usually not a 6-month window. It's usually like 3 to 4, I think. But the amount of traveling that Nick and Luke that's not normal. Yeah. So it's usually divided also by the bigger part of the cast. The fact that they hit every single one of the markets, and it as I say, they are single people, clearly. Because a lot of times too, like if the celebrity that's leading the piece is married or has a family, they're not going to want to be away from them for that long. So, yeah.
Absolutely. The time has actually come. We have 3 more minutes before this live is going to end. And so I just wanted to, first of all, thank Roni. And Roni, just quick question. Do I have your permission to put this up on YouTube?
Yeah, go ahead.
Awesome. Like I might re-listen to this myself, just because I really do appreciate your insight in the way you think, and I can see how your history and the background that you've had doing. You said nerdy curious. You said
nerdy curious, yeah.
Yeah, I mean how that experience really shapes your ability to see what is happening here, which I think was a really important conversation to have. And I'm really glad that you reached out and said, I would love to have this kind of topic, because it's been a rich conversation. And I think most people would have agreed. That that is actually the case. Like, it's been a great conversation. Do you know, somebody said, Cloudy Clouds says, has any Netflix or Shondaland spokesperson given an explanation for the length of this tour? Do you think that they're going to do a tour this long again?
I I don't know. I mean, I think they might try to do it again, because of how successful this is, or this was. But if I think a lot of people in the industry are going to start trying to copy what Nick and Luke did, and it's going to feel manufactured and is going to fail epically.
Yeah. They can't, I mean, they can't recreate it. I mean, like,
Yeah. So
I'm sorry.
I'm hoping. I think Shonda herself is insightful enough to understand that, which I think that's why this ended up being as long as it was, because I think she knows. She feels it. She got the tingles. She casted them for Christ's sake. Like, I'm sure she knows. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. We'll see. I wanted to say, guys, if you have any additional questions, feel free to DM me. I'm happy to answer any and all questions if you need, and if you need any extra support on like the mental health stuff, navigating all this, just feel free to DM me. My DMs are open.
Yay, I'm glad to that plug also. And if you just final things as well for those who may not follow me on YouTube or subscribe to my YouTube yet, and you can go to my page and choose YouTube, and you can subscribe there. And yeah, that's pretty much it, I think. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate everybody's time. Thank you, Roni.
Thanks for letting me crash.
Oh, never crashing. I mean, I just really appreciate, again. I love the way you think, and it shows whenever you send me certain things, and I'm like, yeah, I feel that. That's a really great insight. So, anyways, thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Night, guys.
Bye.
Bye.